Welcome to the Over the Hump Podcast, your gateway to the world of the iconic Brahman breed of cattle. At BRC Ranch, our passion for Brahman cattle runs deep. Join us as we delve into the heart of this extraordinary breed, unveiling its rich history, exploring industry trends, and sharing captivating stories that define the American Brahman. BRC Ranch stands as the pinnacle of Brahman excellence in America, boasting a decade-long legacy of champions and housing the finest Brahman bulls worldwide. It's not just about cattle, it's about a legacy that reverberates across ranches and hearts. Brought to you by BRC Ranch, where the Brahman legacy thrives and stories are woven into the very fabric of ranching. This is Over the Hump. And now your hosts, Brendan Cottrell, Rachel Cottrell, and Keaton Dodd.
Hey guys, welcome to Over the Hump. Today I am sharing a great visit with Adelyn of STgenetics. She is just a remarkable Brahman breeder, remarkable businesswoman, and just a visionary in terms of breeding Brahman cattle, analyzing data on Brahman cattle, and then marketing AI sires and genetics all over the world. So we had a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Let's get to Over the Hump. Welcome everyone to your next episode of Over the Hump podcast. Today I'm your host, Rachel Cottrell, and I am very excited to have with us on today's show Adelyn, who is the Beef Operations Manager for STgenetics, amongst a lot of other hats. So welcome, Adelyn.
Thanks, Rachel. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I know our guests are really going to enjoy this episode. So let's just jump right into it. You know, Adelyn, you and I have been friends for probably 20 years or more through junior Brahmin circles and then professionally in the marketing area. And we also have in common that we're both moms and we love great Brahmin cattle. So
yes.
If you would just start out for us by telling us, I mean, I would say being the beef operations manager for a major global beef stud is a huge professional career accomplishment. And I know your pathway to getting there has just been exceptional. And if you would share with the listeners how you got to that position.
Sure. So a little bit about myself. I grew up on a commercial-based cow-calf operation, mainly Brahmin influenced cattle. From there, we in my family exhibited kind of nationally the Brahmin cattle, and I grew up in the AJBA and TJBA organizations and was really involved. In college, I went on and was part of the Australian and American exchange, and I went to Australia for 3 months for the Brahmin Association, which I think I learned quite a bit of Brahmin influenced cattle there too, and it just made me appreciate Brahmin cattle as a whole a lot more. I did attend Texas A&M University, where I graduated with a bachelor's degree in agricultural leadership and development. And from there, I kind of joined an animal nutrition company called Mana Pro for a few months and was a sales rep there. Shortly after, Victoria Lambert with the Brahmin Journal approached me, and I went and worked for her for 2 years. And then from there, Sexting was starting a beef sales force in 2016. And so I came and joined in September and started out as a customer service manager. And then I've kind of worked different roles here. And then from there, I went to marketing. And then from that, I have gone to beef operations. And so it's kind of an interesting role and tied of different events that kind of led here. But it's one of the most interesting things I've done so far is just be a part of the global beef market. And I've really enjoyed it because you see different aspects of different breeds. And so you kind of have different appreciations for different livestock organizations. And it's just taught me quite a bit.
Yeah, I think the great thing about your experience is that you know everything from the ground up. You know, you started as a customer service manager then you worked
Right.
in marketing, and then now you're the beef operations manager. And so that gives you just experience in all facets of the business. So, that is really invaluable at a company.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, you can kind of see different sides. And that's probably one of the most enjoyable sides of what I do is that I kind of do understand different parts of what we're doing. And so it makes it fun, an everyday job in
So
the sense.
how old were you when you went to Australia?
18.
Oh my gosh.
So
And
young.
oh wow. So what an amazing experience for an 18-year-old.
Right, right.
And so
I think too, it just made you appreciate, and I'm sure Rachel, because you deal with so many different Brahmin breeders throughout the world, but Australian Brahmins, I think, when we have to look at how far we're walking and how much emphasis we put on foot structure and udder structure and whatnot, I think it made you realize there's a lot to a Brahmin that a lot of people don't understand, that have to survive in certain conditions, and made you value them, I think, a little bit more.
oh, absolutely. And that's one of the topics I've been looking forward to talking with you about is I guess just the big picture of maybe like functionality of our breed right now
Yeah.
and why that's important because you have a commercial background but you were heavily involved in shows and
Right.
I do feel like our show ring is disconnected currently from in some ways disconnected from the real world of the beef industry
Right.
and what do you think?
I think it's an interesting topic because obviously I think showing cattle started off with exhibiting cattle that ranchers were supposed to have that were functional cattle that were maternal and, cattle that physically look like what we're supposed to have on ranches. I know it's kind of turned a little bit. That's one of my biggest things now is I haven't shown per se an animal in quite some time. I've been more focused with my current job and just family ties into that functional aspect of the Brahmins. And it's made me realize that we as a breed should put more emphasis on, those commercial backgrounds. And especially with my job now, we do have such a big clientele for the commercial market. And it's an industry that I think we should definitely put more emphasis on because we do have a global breed that is made for being maternal animals.
Absolutely. Well, I we might jump all around, but this summer, as you know, Webb judged our Brahmin All American, and I thought he did a fabulous job. And really, there were two things that stood out to me when he was judging, and it was that he really selected cattle that were functional, and he really saw that, and and the second thing that really stood out to me was Webb, as a non Brahmin breeder, really recognized correctness in Brahmin breed character, and he talked about that a lot. And I wondered if you had any input in training.
It's funny because we've been together for 10 years, and we've had a lot of windshield time and a lot of time to just kind of bounce ideas off of each other and talk about it. And we do go into depth even after he judged All American. We talked for hours about what, obviously I had different opinions on some things, and some things I completely agreed with him on. But he comes from a Simmental background, and we raised Simbrals as well, so we're kind of mixing both together. But a big emphasis that we put on is functional cattle and cattle that are able to reproduce. And because we're always thinking about, and I'm sure you and Brandon do the same thing, Rachel, is what are we going to make next? This is great now, but what are we going to do to be better in the future? And what parts of different animals make them so great, and how the skeleton lays into those animals, and what structure and how we need to continue that structure on to the next generation to continue to grow to be better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So let's jump into ST for a minute. Sexing Technologies. I I've known about sexing technologies since it was in its early formation when I was attending Texas A&M myself in the late '90s, and I know that sexing technologies sell sex semen, but I know that y'all do so much more, especially in the Brahmin realm of things too. So, you want to talk to us about that?
Right. So we've grown exponentially fast in a short amount of time. Juan Reno is our CEO, and I think he's just one of those people that's very visionary, and looks forward to futuristic things that maybe we're not thinking about right now, but could be beneficial to us in the future. So under the little ST umbrella, which I don't think is very little, but we've got a dairy sales force, a beef sales force, a swine sales force, and then we have genetics based off of those different entities too. We're also involved in the sorting process of it. We're making our own, pretty much everything in-house as far as media, our distribution centers. We're also very involved in data collection. So we have herd testing in Ohio and here down in Navasota, Texas. So we've got different breeds of herds that we're testing through that. It's mainly a research and development, and we've called that the Genetic Development Center. As far as the Brahmins go, we have a red and gray herd that we're exclusively testing in-house, and we are taking every animal that's born here and we're running them through a feed efficiency test. So we're gathering data based on that and just trying to identify within our own herd what animals are most efficient within the herd. And then we're doing evaluations as far as what do they phenotypically look like to progress. If we've got good numbers, phenotypically, do we want to keep them in herd? And then from there, we tend to sell them in online auctions throughout the year. So we've kind of got different things going on. I'm sure I'm missing something too, but we're constantly growing, and I think that's what makes it interesting. And what we do is, we're seeing different entities and trying to see how we work all together and make it better for the next generation.
Well, we are huge believers in data collection and DNA verification and feed efficiency and things like that. And I know y'all clearly are too. But within our breed, we have breeders like you and us who are very strong adapters of data collection and using the data, and then we have a spectrum of breeders who say things like DNA isn't real,
Right.
so we run the gamut within our breed, and um, that can be a challenge, but obviously ST and you feel like data collection is important. Why do you feel that it's so important?
I mean, we have to make logical decisions every day. And I think with data, that gives you an entity that is able to make those logical decisions. We're not just shooting at the hip anymore. We're basing it off of actual data that's being collected. And to me, that's one thing that we have to put emphasis on, because we can't keep blindly making decisions. And if we're going to progress and make the next best generation, then we have to look at the data that's behind it. For us, and the way we see it is, we'll just take Texas, for example, Rachel. There's probably 80% of the population lives in a big city, and 80% of those people get to vote on what we do on an everyday basis. And so if we're not progressive and not just making the next best generation, but, for us, we're looking at methane gas distribution and how are we making cattle that are going to produce less methane emissions, and how can we make beef and animals that function that are sustainable within the industry, and how that is going to continue to grow as generation growth continues as well.
Absolutely. We're doing some of that methane research too. And when Brandon and I started our Brahmin beef program probably 5 years ago, there were people that said we were crazy. And
Right.
then when we started the methane testing, we have definitely had people that said we were crazy, but it's not crazy.
It's not.
And really, if you aren't, at least, I'm not saying every Brahmin breeder needs to be doing this right now, but you at least need to be knowledgeable and have it on your radar, because I do
Absolutely.
believe in 20 years you'll be buying bulls that have a methane EPD.
Oh, I
It might be
agree.
happening now. I don't know, in dairy industries or something, but it's definitely happening. Well, you said you don't want to be breeding blindly, and I love that, because I do think there's another kind of group out there, or not group, but there's a mentality out there of whether you breed cattle with your eye, just looking at, the visual traits, like the physical conformation, or you breed cattle best with the numbers and data and things like that. What do you think what do you think is the best combination of that, or is one better than the other?
To me, I think we have to do a combination. And obviously, every operation is different, and physical location of where you're operating cattle is different. So we have to take into account, are different physical traits going to matter if you're breeding cattle in very South Texas or the North Dakota? And so that's just the kind of way I look at it. And it could just be Texas in general if we're talking about North and South Texas. But if we have to look at what works best for our operation first, to me. But I think it needs to be a combination of physical and genetic data that we're looking at. What works best for us? How can we continue to grow? One bull may not work for my operation. That may work great for your operation. So I think you have to look at it as a combination. It cannot be solely based one or the other.
Yeah, I completely agree. It just gives you more tools to look
Right.
at, Well, obviously, y'all selling semen is your, well, I don't know, selling semen is your main business, but it is a business, right?
Correct.
That you do.
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about, like, are there any trends that you're seeing in AI or trends in, what your customers are like at ST or what they're looking for?
So, I mean, obviously, Angus are probably the main sellers here. And that varies, and we have different types of customers throughout the nation and world that like different things. We also have a huge emphasis on this beef on dairy industry. Brahman wise, I think for a while we've just put so much emphasis on this commercial market, and I think we're going to keep moving that way. And I think people are getting, to me, since ST started so heavily in the Brahman industry first before we even moved into the other breeds, it's interesting because I feel like the Brahmin clientele has been very receptive to sex semen and has wanted to use it now very exclusively instead of having conventional commercial wise. And so we've been very fortunate with that customer base. I think cattle prices were really up this year, and people are going to start rebuilding herds. And so we could see a huge push for heifer semen here in the next year or two to try to rebuild those commercial markets. But it just changes very differently. I mean, obviously your registered breeders are using more ET/IVF. And so it gives or takes either way, however you look at it, which operation you're looking at.
Brahman beef is the next big thing in the meat industry. Known for its great flavor along with heart-healthy benefits, Brahman beef is taking the country by storm. Brahman Country Beef features great-tasting, heart-healthy beef raised by BRC Ranch. We ship nationwide, with everything from premium steaks to briskets, ground beef, and even hard-to-find cuts like tri-tip, picanha, oxtails, and the elusive Brahman hump. Visit BrahmanCountryBeef.com and start your order today.
In general, for your Brahmin market, do you feel that breed character matters when people are buying semen?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, how about do you think carcass quality matters to your
I think
customers?
we're getting there. Not a huge push, but I think that conversation's starting to happen. And I think that's a good thing because we do have an animal that could very well grade well. And so again, with data and research, we can have more information on what those animals look like and what females and males were maybe carrying those traits.
Yeah. I was just curious, what about birth weight? Does that have an impact on your
A
buyers?
huge impact, yes,
Impact,
especially those
right?
commercial buyers.
And what would they be looking for? Lower or higher?
Lower,
Lower birth weight bulls.
right.
Do you feel like show titles or like show accomplishments matter to your customers?
Not in the commercial market. It does so in the registered, and I think more so within the red Brahmins than it does the gray.
Mm-hmm. Do y'all export semen?
We do, and so we have distributors throughout or globally. So we work with those distributors to kind of supply our customers with units.
Have you seen any certain areas that tend to be more popular for Brahmin?
I think it gives or takes. We do different, hot spots, I think, throughout the years. And I think Latin America is definitely coming back, and that's good because that's a good market for us to be in. And so I think it changes. I mean, Thailand was a huge buyer of units for a while, but I think every year is a little bit different.
Yeah, I see that too. And I think that's good because new areas can be using Brahmin, and
Right.
it's always great to have new markets. Of course, you always appreciate like your established markets, but it's great when you bring in a new market because that just means Brahmin is expanding into different areas.
Completely agree.
So, I want to talk a little bit about your opinion of semen pricing. I know this is a hot topic in our breed, and
Right.
let's just say, okay, let's just talk about an Angus or like say a club calf. If someone
Hmm.
wants to buy Angus or club calf semen, what's kind of their price point?
It gives or takes. I mean, show wise, we're looking probably our average straw for a show animal is around $150 for sex.
Okay.
Commercial wise, we're probably at 50 to 60.
Okay. So Brahmin can be higher than
Right.
that. Um,
Very much so.
even I mean, within our own herd, we sell conventional semen from like 25 on up to 10,000 or more.
Right.
And so there's different mentalities in that of, what is your pricing model? What's the pros and cons to that? Pricing super high or super low. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think you have to go with the market. We have to think too. I think the Brahmins are it's a different breed altogether. And when we look at it, there's a small group of breeders and there's a smaller group of breeders that are, putting so much emphasis on the genetics and making the next best one. And I think with ET and IVF, we've really, we could buy one straw of semen and we can make, however many animals off just one straw of semen. And so when we think about this in growing the market and the semen cells, we have to think about what are that straw of semen going to? Are we making are we making 40 animals off of one straw of semen? So justifying that, which you would sell probably for 40 straws, is that one straw going to cover those 40? Then yes, it makes sense to price it a little bit higher to me. For a commercial, if we're putting this on Angus, Hereford cows, do we necessarily have to have that huge price market for them? No, but if that one bull is producing champions on top of champions and people are wanting those genetics, and two, I think Brahmin, we have to think about the exclusivity of those genetics and how much do we want to get that out in the market. So it's just a little bit different to me when we look at the Brahmins versus other breeds.
It is, yeah. I mean, and I think it's a challenge within our breed, but also sometimes challenges are fun because it gives you, it makes you really strategize and think about your breeding decisions and what's going to be best for your
Oh,
operation.
100%. I
Um,
completely agree.
have y'all worked any with offering semen on cloned animals?
We have. So we had the Karoo clone. We still have units on that bull. And then we cloned a bull called X-Ray, the Red Brahmin bull.
Oh yeah.
And so we've been very fortunate with semen cells on both of those bulls. We've tried some other ones and just haven't had much luck of keeping those embryos alive. So we're still looking to try to do a few more rounds. But those two, as of now, those are the semen we've sold. And some countries are receptive to using it and some are not. It just kind of gives or takes and, whether or not that matters to you.
Mhm. Now, one step further, gene editing. I I don't even know how to. I just know the term, and I sound
Right,
smart when I say it, right?
right,
We had someone approach us actually suggesting that we do a gene editing project on Noble and take Noble and gene edit him into being polled because his mother is polled, and it would, they thought it would be cool. I
right,
guess
right.
we don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do all that. But have y'all done any projects with gene editing?
So, as of now, our stance is we do not think our customers or clientele are going to accept it. So, we at this point are staying away until society, and we have to think about it too. I mean, are you going to want to pick up a piece of meat at the grocery store that's been genetically altered? We already have so many issues with the GMOs and other facets of grocery buying. And so as of now, no. It's an interesting topic, and when we
Really?
think about it, how many people are we going to have to feed? I think it was 7 billion people by 2050. So when we think about how to be really progressive in a short amount of time, gene editing is an interesting conversation, but
are our consumers going to accept it? And that's where I think the line gets drawn in the sand of, no, we don't, right now, this is not where we need to go.
Mm-hmm. I was reading a statement from the American Angus Association. You probably read it too, not, a while back, but they don't, at that time, I believe they were not allowing gene animals to be registered.
Right.
And so that's another consideration too.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this has been fascinating talking about ST, but I also want to talk a little bit about just your personal life as a young professional woman, because you are a badass. I don't know if I should say that, but you are. And you recently were working on an MBA, right?
Correct. I graduated in August, so
Oh, wow.
finally done with that.
You were doing that while you were also maintaining your full-time job?
Yes, and pregnant, yes. And,
Oh my gosh. What does a normal day look like for you, just balancing motherhood and a career?
Not a lot of sleep. It starts early, and I think a lot of effort is put into making sure everyone gets out the door, and school and work, and balancing that, and then trying to find the time to take care of other things is a task. But obviously, I think the older I get, especially, putting emphasis in the things that just matter at that point, and making sure that we're not deterring from things that are not going to make us better. So I try to make sure that my day-to-day is just getting things done that are going to continue to work towards favor of where we're going next, instead of emphasizing too much on little things. And I've really tried to surround myself with people that are going to help build up our department as well. So giving more to them to build them has been really great, to work with really great people to make that happen.
Yeah, it sounds like you have to be very intentional in doing that. Just curious, do you dedicate any time towards either like exercise or like meditation or anything like that, just to help with mental health?
Oh, yes. I try to go on a walk every day. If not, I'm really bad about it, but I need to be better about the Peloton.
I know. I was supposed to go walk this morning when it was 32 degrees, and I was like, nah.
Nope. No, but I think that it helps. And I know we don't talk about it enough, but, just having, 30, 45, even an hour just to yourself to, focus on, your mental health or physical health, that makes a difference. And I think it clears your head a little bit better, makes you a little bit more creative. To me, it's needed. It's just trying to find the time, especially when it's 32 degrees outside.
Yes, I know. I wanted to get your opinion. Well, what social media outlets are you on personally?
So, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. I think that's it.
Okay.
I refuse to do the TikTok.
Yeah. When you are looking to hire people for the ST team, does their social media presence play a role in that at all?
I think so. It depends on what we're hiring for. Obviously, if you're a marketing personnel, I want to see how you engage with other people that you are following, or are your friends, and so I think that does matter. Versus maybe somebody that's a sales rep. But obviously, too, I mean, we are in such a digital age where you have to engage in that route. And so, how are we looking on those social medias with engagement, and is it productive and proactive? And yeah, I think social media pages do matter.
Mm-hmm. I think they definitely matter. My daughter is preteen right now, and she's on Instagram and TikTok. And I'm trying to, teach her about being intentional about your social media use. And
Right.
we see it a lot, especially in this show world, like where maybe people go to a show and they're not happy and they post something about social media, post
Oh, yeah.
comment or start a dumpster fire on social media. What advice would you give to like young people when situations like that happen?
I think just realizing that it may be not what was in favor at this moment in time. Is it going to matter in 5 to 10 years? obviously we show cattle and we have, didn't win one show, or we did win and there was things said. But are we going to think about that? And is that going to matter in 5 to 10 years? You may remember it, but is it worth having that conversation on social media about?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. I just I'm using the scare tactic on my kids that anything you post on social media, a college can look at or
Oh,
an employer
100%.
can look at, and that's the route I'm going right now.
Oh, of course. And to think too, like, I mean, maybe I saw that in 5 years. I still remember that as a hiring, or as I'm hiring somebody. And am I going to remember that? And will that affect my decision in that time frame?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Um, just kind of wrapping up here, I know we've been having a wonderful conversation. We always like to ask some Brahmin specific questions. And
Okay.
I know that you showed red and gray, right?
Right.
Growing up. Do you have a preference? Do you lean one way or the other on your favorites?
Well, it started, my brother and I were showing as juniors, and to break it up and for us not to be so competitive, I showed grays and he showed reds. So I obviously had a really big love for grays for a while. The older I've gotten, though, I have found a really good appreciation for the reds, and I don't know if I necessarily have one preference. I do like just really good cattle, and I think red or gray, or however we look at them, if you have those individuals that you just really hone in on, I think that's what's important.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my observation is I, of course, have a stronger gray Brahmin background, but here in the last few years, the quality of the reds has just skyrocketed. I mean,
Right.
I think that the red show may be tougher in some cases than the gray show now. The quality is so deep there. And I really, applaud the red breeders for doing that. They're doing a great job.
I agree. And it's been fun to watch and just try to see what people are producing, and not just here in the US, but globally too.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite country that you visited?
Oh, man.
'Cause I know you travel, I mean, like me, you travel a lot. Do you have
Yes.
any that stand out as some of your favorite trips?
Oh, I know we've talked about it, but I went to Guatemala in 21, and going to SigwaCon was just like the most life-changing event,
Yes.
where the whole trip was just so interesting. And we talk about data, and there's just so much data that's gone into the SigwaCon herd. And seeing that, and just seeing how great those cattle were in person, it just mind boggled me, because I loved having that information and then seeing the cattle in person. And to me, that was just like the most ideal herd I've ever seen. And so that probably was my favorite. I do have a huge love for all the Australian Brahmins too, just because I've spent so much time there. But um,
Well, I
yeah,
have not had the pleasure yet of visiting Sigwacon, but Molly's favorite animal is one of their heifers, and so we have that's on our bucket list. But I heard that is it there when you go there they have a book and they ask you to kind of write down your favorites.
oh yes, it was a whole day of just like information overload, which like that's right up my alley. And we got to see all the data of like, how many times this female has had a calf, or she's been IVF'd in those records, and what do you think we should breed her to, and this is what she's bred it before. And it was so interesting, and I would just really applaud how much information we were giving, just to look at and take home and just really like analyze. And to me, that was just, to be able to collect that much data and to present it was a neat entity within that organization.
Yeah, and I would venture that is a big part of that ranch's success. Like we talked about, they are using the combination of visual appraisal but backing it up with data, and their herd is so uniform and so consistent. That's what you get when you implement data collection and tools like that.
I completely agree with you there.
Last question. Do you have
Okay.
a favorite Brahmin animal of all time? Or if you don't have a particular favorite, is there any animal in the breed that you'd never got a chance to see in person, but you wish you could have?
Ooh. That is a good question. Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to think. Okay. I know red. There is one female, and she's an HK passport daughter, and her name was Giselle. And I just know her because my favorite two cows of HK right now that are producing are 272 and 268, and she's the dam to those two females. To me, she was just the most. She looked like the most ideal red Brahmin female, and just looking at her, it would have been so great to see her in person and to really truly appreciate those genetics. So yeah, I think that would be my answer, but I know in my heart that there's more foreign, and I just cannot think of them off the top of my head.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Well, there's so many. I mean,
Oh, so many.
even if you go back to the early days, I mean, just you could go on and on. Yes, but it's cool to hear, like, I think everybody has that picture in their head of what is the perfect animal. And so for yours, it's HK Giselle.
Yes.
That is cool. That is very cool. Yes. Well, Adelyn, I have just thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, I feel like I know you very well. I actually consider you, one of my soul sisters of the Brahmin breed, but I know our listeners truly enjoyed just getting a glimpse of what day-to-day life is like at ST, and, what day-to-day life is for you as one of the leading Brahmin professionals worldwide, and so it's just been amazing.
Well, I appreciate it, Rachel, because I really look up to you and appreciate all that you do. And, obviously, I think you're a badass too. So here we are. And
Well, thank you so much, everyone. We really hope that you enjoyed this podcast of Over the Hump, and we thank you, Adelyn, for being on, and we look forward to our next episode. Thanks again, guys. Hey guys, we hope that you're enjoying the Over the Hump podcast. We've had so many great reviews and great feedback from this podcast, and we've had several people asking how they can support it. So we are proud to announce that we've created the Over the Hump fan club, where you can join and sign up on a yearly basis to help support this podcast and get some really cool merch as well. We have 3 different levels ranging from $40 a year to $250 a year. And at each level, you get some really cool different benefits and different free gifts. For example, at our Trailblazer level, you get a free copy of my really awesome Modern Brahmin coffee table book, which is a 160-page coffee table book featuring the gorgeous photography of Carlos Guizor from Mexico, along with Brahmin history written by me. And then our Supreme Stockman level, which is $250 a year, includes that plus free access to the Brahmin Academy for 1 year. And at our Trailblazer and Supreme Stockman levels, you also get a discount to use in the BRC online store, which you can use for anything that's in the store, including semen, AI certificates, show cattle camp, event registrations, and more. So this is a really great opportunity, especially if you purchase a lot of semen or AI certificates from us. You can join the fan club and get some great discounts to use throughout the whole year. So if you like this podcast and want to help support it, you can sign up for the Over the Hump fan club at shopbrcutrer.com. That's shopbrcutrer.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope you are enjoying it.
You've been listening to the Over the Hump podcast. Our passion is Brahmin cattle, and it runs deep. And this show is about its rich history, industry trends, and stories that define the American Brahmin. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram and Facebook at BR Cutrer. See you next time on the Over the Hump podcast.